The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. This is Kathleen Taylor with the Nevada Women's Business Center. Thank you so much for tuning in to our webinar today about 8A certification. It is a fantastic SBA program. I have a great colleague of mine here today to be a presenter and to tell us all about the 8A certification program. So basically, what we're going to learn today, just to kind of give you a little background of what the webinar entails. The 8A certification program is an SBA program, and I have here Barry Van Orden of the SBA, and he's going to be our guest speaker for our presentation. We will have a Q&A opportunity on your control panel for the webinar. If you could please type any questions, any comments that you may have in the question box and hit send. I'll receive it and I'll share that with Barry and we can answer your questions or comments as we go along. Also, we're going to have some closing remarks, and also after the webinar you're going to receive a survey on behalf of the Nevada Women's Business Center. We really would appreciate your feedback about the webinar and to help us find out what things that you liked and what some things that we can improve, so we would appreciate your feedback. So with that, it's my pleasure to have our colleague here. It's so exciting to have someone with the SBA presenting on this program, given that we are an SBA program, the Nevada Women's Business Center. So Barry, thank you so much for being here and offering your expertise on the subject of 8A certification.
Well, good morning, and Kathleen, thank you very much for having the SBA here to talk about the 8A Business Development Program. So my name is Barry Van Orden, everybody, and I'm a business development specialist with the Small Business Administration. And what my primary role is to work with businesses that are looking to sell their products or services to the federal government and federal contracting. I also work with the federal contracting agencies to liaison to work with small businesses so they can meet their federal contracting goals.
Excellent, excellent. And now let's hear more about what the 8A certification program entails.
So the purpose of the 8A program is to really help those underserved business communities compete in the federal marketplace. So it's to promote the business development to small business concerns that are, controlled and owned by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, and to expand their opportunity to the federal marketplace. Now, the objective is also to, develop the business in general, so you're not relying just on federal contracts, but it's really known as a business enhancer.
Oh, excellent.
So the 8A program, it's really a 9-year comprehensive program. It's broken down into 2 phases. It's a developmental phase, which is 4 years, and a transitional stage, which is 5 years. And so you get all types of assistance to grow your business. You get technical assistance, you get one-on-one counseling, you get access to government contracts, you can get sole source contracts. What sole source means is basically when procuring agencies go out and they have a requirement, typically the rules of procurement state that you have to advertise all businesses, including other than small businesses, which is large businesses. Then they quickly shrink that pool and make it just for small businesses. And we have other set-aside programs within the SBA also, but with the 8A Business Development Program, a firm that's eligible can get a sole source award, which is really nice because you're going from a big pool to a super small pool. And so that's really, the heart of the program is to grow these contractors so they can actually get some sole source contracts.
What I really, what's so impressive about this program is that the SBA, your department, offers the technical assistance and growth and development and helping people to go through the steps of this, because it is pretty detailed. So how can a person become eligible? What's some of the criteria for the
Sure.
program?
So there's a lot of criteria with the program, but the first thing I want to talk about is you have to be registered to do business with the federal government. There's a program called sam.gov, and at the end of the presentation, I'm going to go over a checklist for a quick start guide, and that's on there because if you're not registered to do business with the federal government, then you wouldn't get all the benefits of being in the 8A program. So there's a lot of criteria. They're listed right here. We're going to go over all of these individually. So, excuse me. So first of all, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and then you have to be a small business as far as size standards. We have something called NAICS codes, which is North America Industry Classification System codes. And then when you set up your SAM profile, you're going to actually identify your primary NAICS code, and you have to be small in that NAICS code. You also have to be socially and economically disadvantaged. And then ownership has to be controlled 51% or more for disadvantaged individuals. And then there's a potential for success and then good character. And we'll touch on all of these in depth later on in the presentation.
Sure.
So other assistance includes the SBA All Small Mentor Protege Program. And what this does basically is it allows firms, you don't just have to be an 8A firm anymore. You can now just be a regular small business firm, and it allows you to go out and find a mentor. And what that does is that allows you to actually connect with them to fill any gaps that you might be lacking in your business, whether it's past performance, how to put together proposals, or a host of other criteria that you just need assistance with. And then once you get the All Small Mentor Protege approved, then you can go ahead and do something that's called a joint venture. And then with that joint venture, you can actually go work with another firm and then go bid on contracts. And with joint ventures now, they passed a rule stating that the contracting agencies have to take the past performance of actually both venture partners.
So when you're talking about the Mentor Protege program, it really helps the participant in the 8A certification process to build relationships and to cultivate their skill development with someone that they're matched with in a particular industry. And it also provides them with opportunities for subcontracting as well. I think this is fantastic.
It does. So we'll talk about subcontracting later. Remind me if I don't bring it up because there are great opportunities. But with the Mentor Protege program, when you do the joint venture, the good thing is I said earlier that you normally have to, be small to get contracts. With the joint venture, with an approved Mentor Protege agreement, small businesses can actually work with businesses that are other than small and get a waiver for something called affiliation. So they won't be considered. Excellent. They won't be considered disqualified.
Excellent.
So that's a really good program. And then there's a lot of other, little perks with the program too that we'll talk about.
Sure.
Oh, one other thing with business development. Once you get accepted into the program, you'll come in for a 4 to 5 hour orientation. We're going to talk about all the responsibilities of the program, because it's a 9-year program. So we're going to make sure that you understand all the requirements. There's no cost to enter the program in dollars, but there's a cost in time and resources because you have a lot of forms you have to, fill out. You have to do tax returns, submit financial statements, and they could be audited if your revenue is over, $10 million, reviewed if your revenue is between $2 million and $10 million, and then they would just be compiled in-house and signed if it's under $2 million. Now, we are working as an agency to make that whole process a little more simplified.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later too.
Sure.
So one of the other things that we have with business development, we have something called the 7J Management Technical Assistance. And what that is basically, the SBA, we contract with firms that will actually provide a lot of technical and management assistance. That can be one-on-one or it can be a group seminar. So in my portfolio of firms, if I have a lot of firms that are looking to understand how to prepare a solicitation to respond to one, then we could do something like that. If they need to have assistance with, setting up their QuickBooks or something like that, we can do that, and that's all free of charge.
Oh, that's fantastic, because those are some like basic, pillars to establish your foundation as a business owner, and to have that free technical assistance. I mean, and the resources available. That's fantastic.
Yeah, something else that's a little unique now. It used to be with the 8A Business Development Program. When the contracting officer wanted to offer procurement to the 8A program, you would have three parties. You would have the SBA, you would have the agency, and then you would have the company, the 8A firm. And you still have that. But now with the partnership agreement, it's pretty much the contracting officer and the firm. The SBA, we accept the program, we accept the requirement into the program, and then we pretty much just let those two, work it out. However, if there's ever an issue, we're available to, kind of mediate and make sure things are moving along okay.
Oh, very good. That's good to know. At least in the event that something does happen, at least there's a process or a system in line to address that, and more so internally.
Yeah, and something else that we do that's pretty neat, I spoke about federal contracts, but we're also concerned about, business development overall. So if there's commercial opportunities, especially right now, a big thing is with the Raiders Stadium.
Right.
There's a lot going on with that. And although that's not a federal project, we get involved with, passing information back and forth and figuring out what the requirements are. We also work with Clark County. We work with the PTAC, which I'll talk about later, which is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. But we really, want to steer firms to all types of opportunities, because it's not just about the federal game. Here, just locally, we have Clark County, we have the school district, we have Metro, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Center, school district. There's just so many agencies that are purchasing goods and services, and they're all looking for small businesses.
This is fantastic how you and the department here is like a liaison or a conduit between all of these opportunities, in addition to federal contracts. Basically, it's like a kid in a candy store, with the technical assistance in order to flourish. This is fantastic.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. Even the state of Nevada has an emerging small business program, and it's really phenomenal. And the good thing about that is certain dollar thresholds, contracting officers for, Clark County or the state, they only have to, talk to one or two people, get one quick quote. They don't have to go full and open and do the whole procurement process. So it really works out well.
Totally. I mean, that's a game changer there within itself.
Another perk of the program, too, is that you can obtain access to surplus government property and supplies for a minimal charge. So a lot of times, the government has excess equipment. Say we have excess vehicles or office furniture, or, sometimes even buildings that are, excess. What they'll do is, the process is to check with other agencies to see if they can be used first, because the government has to use it first if possible. But a lot of times it's just not a good fit, and there's no use for other agency. So then it gets turned into the GSA, which is General Service Administration, and they actually run the surplus property program per state, and ours is out of Carson City. So there are opportunities to get surplus property too. Now, there are some rules with that, too. You have to use it for official purposes for your business, as you describe in your business plan. And then you can't sell it or profit off it. But it is a nice little program.
That's fantastic. I had no idea about this beneficial perk. I mean, office furniture alone, that could be really expensive, or certain types of equipment, or a building even. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So I'm so glad that you're sharing all of these, little tidbits with us. Thank you, Barry.
So now the term of participation, it's a 9-year program. So it's a big commitment.
Sure. And it's well worth the time. Absolutely.
So it's broken down into two phases. You have the developmental stage and the transitional stage.
Okay.
So the developmental stage is 4 years, and the transitional stage is the last 5 years.
Okay.
And the big difference between the two stages, well, there's two. The first one is some contracting agencies, especially for the construction type projects, they will actually limit 8A competition for contracts for firms that are only in the developmental stage.
Okay.
So that's one offer, or that's one option. And I mentioned that you have sole source contracts under $4 million for most things and $7 million for manufacturing.
Okay.
But for construction, a lot of times the agency will go to the SBA and ask for that number to be lowered. That way, these firms can actually participate in, competition.
Oh,
and so they'll limit it to the developmental stage firms a lot of times. Another thing with the transitional stage is that's when you have something called business activity targets. So, for example, the first year, which would be year 5, you have a 15% business activity target. And then the last year, year 9, you have a 55% business activity target. And what that means is they want 55% of your business when you get out of the program not to be 8A.
Fantastic. And that way it really positions the participant in the 8A program to not to have all their eggs in one basket and to be able to sustain the business after the program is completed. That's fantastic.
Yes, that's actually really the purpose, just to make sure that firms don't have all their eggs in one basket, and then when those 8A contracts expire, they don't have anything less. They don't have anything left.
Sure.
So.
Excellent.
Now, one thing, continuation in the program is dependent on being eligible each year. It is a 9-year program, so every year you actually have to certify. There's forms that you complete and you send in information. Now that process is changing a little bit in the new system I'm going to talk about later, the Certify system. So it's going more to a questionnaire-based system instead of just actual, forms where you have to fill out a whole bunch of redundant information.
Yes.
But you still have to be eligible. And one big thing to consider if you are going to get into the program is ownership structure. We'll talk about that a little later on. But once you're in the program, you cannot change your ownership without getting approval. So I always like to bring that up because if you change your ownership once you get in, you could actually be suspended or actually, terminated from the program. So we don't want that to happen. So a lot of times firms that are getting ready to get into the program are looking to change their ownership for whatever reason. And so I always encourage them to get that all straightened out before they get into the program and try to, finalize those changes going forward.
Sure. And that's a really good security measure, so to speak, so that someone doesn't disqualify themselves just over their legal structure changing. So this is good to know.
One other thing too, pertaining to the term of participation, is typically the program runs 9 years from once you get accepted into the program. There's 2 exceptions. One is if you're a military reservist and you're called active duty, you may suspend your participation. And something that's new that's not on this slide is if there's a declared disaster, you can actually go ahead and ask to have your participation put on hold for that time, which is really nice.
That is, absolutely, because earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, hurricanes, flooding in Houston, we've had heavy rains in California, and other types of natural disasters, and that does impact business. So this is fantastic to have that option for people to continue with the eligibility without the time basically being spent in case of a natural disaster. So that's great that the whole time frame is offset. That's great.
So now we're going to talk about eligibility criteria. There's a lot of criteria to make sure the right businesses are getting selected into this program. So I'll touch on all of these. There are, social disadvantage, economic disadvantage, ownership, control and management, size, and good character.
And before you touch upon all of those, Barry, I'd like to get the audience opinion. I'd like to launch a short poll. So if you could please bear with me while I go ahead and get your feedback. I would really appreciate it for those of you that are tuning in to us today. So this is a poll here, and we're just going to launch it, and it's just basically asking your opinion. Are you thinking about having, the 8A certification become an 8A certified program, our business? So if you could please give us your input, we would really appreciate it. Okay, so I will go ahead and I'll close the poll. This is fantastic, and I'll share the results. So wow, look at that, 100% said yes. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much for your input.
That is really exciting.
Yes, it is. So to continue, Barry, with the different criteria for the program, could you share that with us?
Perfect. And I'm really excited that, everybody on here is interested in the program, because
Yes.
we're really actively recruiting right now to, get more firms into the portfolio. We need firms in a wide amount of businesses, but here in the local area, we've had a lot of requests for construction firms in particular.
Oh,
so
really?
We are really actively recruiting them, whether they're general contractors or specialty trades. We're looking for all of them. And like I said, we're looking for all firms that are qualified and interested, but we really need some construction firms. I get that at least 3 or 4 times a month.
Wow. And there's a lot of construction going on. I mean, whether it's residential, commercial, and there's contracts. There is opportunities to be that are on the table. And having the 8A certification for a company definitely gives them more leverage in getting those contract opportunities. I'm so glad that you're here to share this with us.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is social disadvantage. Social disadvantage is basically individuals who have been subjected to racial, ethnic prejudice or other cultural bias because just of their identities as members of groups without regards to individual qualities. So we have something called the presumed list. And if you're on this presumed list, you're automatically considered to be socially disadvantaged. So the list is, right there to see.
Okay.
If you're not on this list, then you have to do something that's called a narrative. And it's a little bit of hard work, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to go back and forth with headquarters SBA a couple times. But you establish your case by the preponderance of evidence. And you have to really articulate that the disadvantage stems from race, ethnic origin, gender, physical handicap, long-term environmental isolation, or other similar cases. And it has to be something that's happened in the United States, and it has to be something that's chronic and substantial. Now, one question I get all the time is if women are automatically considered disadvantaged, or if the LGBT community is automatically considered disadvantaged. And the answer right now is no. Those groups are not considered automatically socially disadvantaged. However, if they meet any of the criteria that's described here in this presentation, then they can document that and actually get accepted into the program for being socially disadvantaged.
And that's a good thing to know, especially if you have the opportunity to articulate in writing or state your case about being a member of one of these groups. At least you have that opportunity.
Yes.
Because it's not a hard no. It could turn into a yes.
Well, and one thing I see a lot of times, especially with women-owned small businesses, and when they write their narrative, we'll have somebody that's like an architect or a lawyer or some other professional that's in a field that's dominated by non-women. And a lot of times they'll go trying to break down that barrier, and they'll, show up and they'll be treated like, they're a courier or, secretary or something like that.
Sure.
And sometimes they're, discounted.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that can be documented and you can show a trend, that would really, help the narrative. Same thing if you're turned down for funding or opportunities, all those things need to really be articulated well and captured to
Sure.
go ahead and, put that in the narrative.
That's excellent, and it's a great opportunity to be your own advocate, for stating your case and having that opportunity. Thank you for sharing that, Barry.
Yeah, and one thing too, if you do apply, unfortunately, the narrative is probably the toughest part of the 8A application, and there's really no sample or template.
Oh, I see.
We go off. This program, the 8A program, falls under the 13 Code of Federal Regulations for small business programs, and then the subchapter is 124, and in there, it gives a whole description, but it doesn't really tell you exactly what they're looking for there, so there's no cookie cutter approach. So don't get frustrated if you apply and then you get a letter back asking you to further clarify or explain certain things.
Okay.
Because sometimes it does take people 2 or 3 times just on the narrative, but it normally goes pretty fast once your application has been reviewed.
Okay.
So in the past, I used to have some firms that said, oh, you know what, they got frustrated, it like hurt their feelings, and they felt like they were being discounted. And that's not the case at all. It's just the people up at headquarters, they have to make sure that they're eliminating as much potential fraud in the program as possible.
Absolutely.
So if you think you have a legitimate case, by all means, continue on.
Yes.
And then you can always contact myself too, and I'll do my best to help get you through the process.
Definitely. And you are excellent at what you do, Barry. So I'm so glad that you're sharing this resource to us today.
Oh, thank you. The SBA office here in Nevada, our goal is to really help businesses, start, grow, and succeed.
Yes, absolutely. And this is part of it. And having these types of platforms with speakers and their area of expertise, I always learn so much from you every time that we speak about the 8A certification program. So again, this is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for sharing that.
So economic disadvantage, it's a lot easier because, it's just criteria. You meet it or you don't meet it. So basically your net worth can be up to $250,000, and that's minus your residence and the equity in the business.
Okay.
Now, once you get accepted into the program, that number triples. It goes up to $750,000.
Oh, wow.
So that's a pretty good thing.
Definitely.
A little more information on being disadvantaged economically is that there are some exceptions. Now, one thing is your total assets can't be over $4 million when you come into the program, even if your adjusted net worth is negative or $1. If it's over $4 million for total assets, you're not considered disadvantaged. But once you get into the program, that number also goes up. It goes from $4 million to $6 million.
Oh, that's a really nice perk. That's a big bump.
So one thing they do take out is they have some exemptions. The biggest exemption is for retirement accounts. They can go ahead and deduct that amount from your net worth so it doesn't count, as long as you're not eligible to use those retirement funds without penalty.
Okay. This is really good to know. It's all in the details.
Yes, and then personal income received from the company to pay corporate taxes, like if you file as an S corp, especially, then that won't be counted either. But of course, for either scenario, you have to provide, the documentation.
Okay.
So spousal determination, spouse's finances, they'll be considered if they have a role in the business or if they've lent money or provided credit support or guaranteed loans of the business. And under all circumstances, spouses must provide a financial statement to the SBA. Currently, that's a SBA Form 413, but under certified, that's going to be changing to a questionnaire form in the near future. So it will be a little easier. And then they expect the spouse to have 50% of joint assets and joint liabilities. Ownership. So at least 51% has to be unconditionally owned by the disadvantaged individuals. So basically, if you have a person that owns the firm 100%, then that's straightforward. But a lot of times you might have like 3 or 4 people that own the firm.
Right.
So at least in that case, if it's like 30, and 40%, 2 people would have to be socially disadvantaged in order to qualify, because it has to be 51% or more.
Okay, that's fair.
And it's the same thing. It correlates the same way with partnerships, LLCs, and corporations. One thing to keep in mind is if there's any stock options that involve non-disadvantaged individuals, they're going to be viewed as they've already been exercised.
Okay.
Because the one thing the SBA doesn't want, they don't want the 8A firm not to be in control and not to have ownership.
And speaking of ownership, which you stated earlier about making sure that before a firm enters into the 8A certification, to make sure that their legal structure is in place, because just this criteria alone, could make someone say, oh, wait a minute, we have to make sure that we're structured properly before we can, even apply for this program. So it's really good to have their ducks in a row for the criteria purposes.
Yeah, and something else I'll touch on in ownership, I actually just learned about it last week from headquarters, because one of my firms had a question on they were going to be part of their firm is going to be purchased by a different organization. And what I found out by going to headquarters is a firm in the similar type of work can't own more than 20% of a firm that's going after the 8A program for the developmental stage, and 10% in the transitional stage.
Oh, that is some key information there. Absolutely. Especially if you are thinking about selling a portion of your business or changing in some way. That's really good to know, because you don't want to compromise your eligibility because of that acquisition.
Yeah, so what I always tell prospective firms is, if you have something that seems a little unique or out of the ordinary, if I can't find a really good answer, because our Code of Federal Regulations, it's clear language, but stuff is kind of scattered through different sections sometimes.
Okay.
And it might not always fall even in our chapter of 124 for the 8A program. If it's a unique situation, I'll ask the firm to provide me an email or a letter with specific bullet points that actually, display their situation, and then I will actually send that up to headquarters. There's a couple people up there that are really good. I only contact them a couple times a year, and they give me a really good response, and then I can forward that back to the firm, which is really good, because this last time the firm was ready to actually execute and sell some of their company, and it would have really been detrimental to them. So I'm very thankful that I was able to get them that information and then learn that to pass it forward.
Oh, absolutely. And again, this goes back to the technical assistance that you provide free of charge to be their liaison in situations like this. People don't necessarily have that information, and they just assume that we're going to go ahead, sell this part of the business off. It won't affect our criteria or our eligibility at all. And it's so it's reassuring that someone at your level and level of expertise can say, wait a minute, let's make sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed, because we don't want this opportunity to be detrimental. So it's great that you were speaking and advocating on those firms' behalf to fill in the blanks.
Thank you. So one thing with control and management, whether it's a partnership, LLC, or corporations, is to really demonstrate and make sure that all of the documents, say the same thing, and demonstrate that the disadvantaged individual or individuals are the ones in control.
Right, exactly. You can't be a lame duck leader. Yes.
Because you will be automatically, disqualified on that if the SBA goes through and they find out that you're not in control. That's one of the key pillars. They're all key, but control and management is really a focus of emphasis to make sure that it's done right.
And I'm just curious. So the control and management, it doesn't matter what percentage of the business a partner would own. Like, for example, let's say that one partner owns 30%, the other one owns 40%. If the one that owns, and another one owns a smaller percentage, if the one that owns 30% is really doing a lot of, the control aspects of the business, that's fine, even though they have a smaller percentage of ownership in the business. Does that play into anything in reference to controls?
So it does, and I'm going to cover that in another slide too in just a minute. But the thing is, it's really the 80 program is really designed to make sure that the disadvantaged people are the ones actually, controlling everything, and they have, the majority say.
Okay.
So you don't want non-disadvantaged people to, overly benefit from the program.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that clarification.
So typically, it will be just one person that's disadvantaged. They'll own anywhere from 51% to 100%, but sometimes you'll have multiple people.
Right.
And in that case, then, both of those people would have to show control and management together.
Got it.
So
okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So another thing that kind of goes with control too is the disadvantaged individual or individuals, they have to be the highest, positions in the company, highest compensated, have the ability to hire and fire, set policies, have the ability to commit the firm to contracts, and have the ability to control budget and financial disbursement.
Definitely.
So basically, we want to make sure that it's not like a pass-through or a storefront. They have to be the ones that are actually, in control.
Absolutely.
So I briefly touched about size. So size is determined by either the average 3 years of revenues or number of employees for like manufacturers, dealers, and wholesalers. And size falls under, 13 CFR Chapter 121. And if you go to sba.gov/size, there's a little chart, a table that has all of the different size standards. Typically, most of the 8A firms fall under dollar size standards. We have some manufacturers, so they will be, people size standards. But for the most part, it's dollars. And they range anywhere from $7.5 million all the way up to $38.5 million.
Okay.
So they're pretty large. And the reason for that is the SBA wants to consider as many people, as many businesses as possible as small businesses.
And when a firm is going through the whole process of getting registered in the SAM, they have to actually complete the size standard category, correct?
They do. They self-certify to each NAICS code whether or not they're, small or other than small.
Oh, good then. All right.
So potential for success. This is another really important criteria to getting into the program. I mentioned that the 8A program, it's a business enhancer. So your business already has to have, some type of potential. Right. You can't get into the program if you have like no revenues, no past contracts, no experience. So really what they want, the SBA, we want proof of 2 years of operation and the firm's primary industry is verified by revenues reported in the business tax returns, financial capability, sufficient capitalization, make sure you have working capital, financial performance, bonding capacity, manageable debts, and then, of course, the managerial and technical capacity that you've done that type of work.
Yes, the experience.
Yes. And then if you've had any federal contracts, then we want to see those too, just to see, even if it's a subcontract or even if it's not federal, that you've done, something that's kind of similar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very important, is just to show that, the firm has, the capability. Because if you get into the program and you don't have the potential for success, the 80 program is not going to be able to benefit you as much. It's not going to be that big business enhancer. So we want to make sure that, the firm is ready. And I work with a lot of firms after I speak to them and tell them about the program and how it works. They're like, oh, you know what? I think maybe I should go get some subcontracts or do this and do that and come back, because it's a long program. It's 9 years.
Yes. Yes.
But I've seen firms be in the program for 3 or 4 years, and then they finally hit their stride, and they're like, wow, maybe I should have waited.
Oh,
I have firms that are, graduating next year, and they're like, well, I only really got 3 or 4 years worth out of this program because I just wasn't ready. It took me that long to, do my part. Because if you get into the AD program, there's no guarantee you're going to get government contracts. We don't get to issue them out. I can help be your advocate, but I have to use the information that's provided. So if you have, past performance, you have fair and reasonable pricing, you have experience, you have good partners, then those are all things that I can help the firm sell.
I'm glad that you made that point, Barry, because it's a two-way street. We don't want companies to be under the assumption that this program, it has all these perks and, they sprinkle fairy dust and wave a magic wand, and then presto, all of these contracts are being thrown your way. Actually, there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done on the participant part prior and also during the process of being a participant in an 8A certification.
And one thing I see, it's not a requirement, but a lot of the firms coming into the program right now that have immediate success with the 8A program have already had some presence in the federal marketplace, whether it's a subcontractor or especially if they won some small competitions on their own.
Excellent.
Because then they can sell that to the contracting officer and say, hey, just to let you know, I'm in the process of getting my 8A certification. And, contracting officers sometimes salivate over that, because if they know a firm can deliver on time, budget, fair and reasonable, and then they don't have to go through the whole competition process, they really like that.
Definitely. And it really does position the firm for the potential for success.
So one thing, let me back up a slide real quick. One thing that's not on this slide is there is a 2-year waiver for the potential for success. So if you don't meet that, when you actually apply on certify.gov, it will give you that opportunity to, they'll give you 5 criteria. And if you can meet all those, it's basically that's required. It will say, financial capability, all those different things. If you can show that, hey, wait a second, the business I'm doing, I was an architect for a firm for 23 years. I'm bringing, most of those clients with me. I don't need equipment. I don't need working capital. I have all of this. It's basically based on my experience in the licensing. Then you can, a lot of times, get that waiver for the 2-year rule.
Oh, very good, especially for service-driven industries.
So lack of character is something else lack of good character is something else that's a requirement for the 80 program.
Yes.
It's pretty much, self-explanatory. You don't want to have any SBA violations. You don't want to be debarred from federal, contract opportunities.
Sure.
Because obviously, the 80 program helps people get contracting opportunities. And then you don't want to not pay your, debt to the government, whether it's taxes or something.
Sure.
Now, on that, you're going to be asked about good character when you apply for the program. If you had, delinquent taxes, that doesn't mean you can't get in, but you have to have a repayment plan. You have to show that it's being executed. You're going to have to go ahead and provide that.
Sure.
If you were arrested a while back or something happened, that's okay. You just have to disclose it. You know, the longer ago it happened, the better, but things happen.
Yeah, things
and
happen.
The SBA understands that. I have at least 2 or 3 people in the portfolio that they never thought they could get in, and we worked with them, and they were very honest with everything, disclosed everything, and they're in the program, and they're succeeding with the program.
Oh,
so
excellent.
the key is you want to disclose anything, because the SBA does a comprehensive check both on the individual and the business.
Absolutely. And the old saying, honesty is the best policy. And it definitely does give you a voice and an opportunity to explain, you know, things happen in life, and don't feel that you're going to be automatically disqualified just because something happened in the past and now it's going to impact how you grow and develop your business. This is a great way of pleading your case or stating your case, and I'm so glad that the SBA has that, gives a firm
Yeah.
or owners that opportunity.
Yeah, and I've been with the SBA about 4.5 years, and I haven't seen a single firm turn down
Hmm.
for disclosing things that have happened in their
Hmm.
past.
Excellent.
So once you're in the 80 program, there's
Hmm.
some continued eligibility. You always have to meet that requirement.
Okay.
All of those criteria that you had, when you got in the program, they don't go away once you're in the program. A lot of those numbers change, as I mentioned earlier,
Uh-huh.
but the requirements don't change. So you're going to have something called an annual review. We look at, your business. We look at your tax returns. We're making sure your competitive business mix is, right on target,
Yes.
especially for the transitional stage.
Hmm.
We have something called a semi-annual Form 1790, and basically what that form is, it's if you want to hire a consultant to do something, whether it's go after contracts, help you, with your business plan, or any other professional reason, the SBA allows that.
Oh, very good.
However, what the SBA ensures is that the price for the service is determined fair and reasonable, and under no circumstance can you promise a percentage of future contracts or work. So you can't do that. So I review 1790s all the time, and what I'm looking for is just to make sure things make sense. So
Sure.
if somebody says, "Hey, I paid somebody $500 to, write my business plan," well, the first question that I would ask them is why. We can get you free resources for that. But the second thing I would look at and say, okay, well, $500, that seems reasonable. Now, if you paid $30,000 to have the business plan prepared, then I would look at that and say, well, that's probably not considered fair and reasonable.
Right, absolutely.
And then, I would start asking other questions. Is this kind of an excessive withdrawal? What's going on? Because with the business, the next thing is excessive withdrawals. You're allowed to take out so much money of the business each year depending on revenue, and there's a charge.
Oh, this is great.
And if you go over that, then it could be detrimental to the business. And then it could also lead to other things too, like, who has control, where's this money going, is it a storefront, and different things. So we look at, all of that just to make sure that the firm is eligible. And, to be honest with you, I've rarely have an issue with firms, meeting their eligibility.
Oh, excellent.
Sometimes they do have issues with their business activity targets.
And this is great because it's like a checks and balances system to sometimes protect your money from you. I'm just, putting it out there, having, this type of criteria to be met year after year. It really does help the firm and the owners make sure that it's not excessive, and that everything that they are bringing in consulting a consultant for is reasonable.
Yes, and you definitely want to make sure that you're meeting those competitive business targets, because if you don't, you can get placed on 8A sole source restriction. And that means you can no longer get sole source contracts until you meet those targets.
This is great because it's like it's succession planning, basically. Company life, and financial viability after the program. That's great.
So the next thing is, since you're all interested in the program, you probably want to know how to apply. So if you're already registered with sam.gov, then you can go to https://www.certify.sba.gov. Now, it is imperative that your sam.gov profile is live, that it's accurate and up to date, because we're trying to streamline what information people have to provide, And so by having an active SAM account that's current, about 50 to 70 data fields will automatically be populated and carried over to the certified process.
Oh, that's huge. It saves a lot of time. Absolutely.
And if you don't have your SAM account already, it takes anywhere from a week or so to get an account because you have to, get a DUNS number, and there's a lot of other things that you have to do. It will walk you through the whole process. Now, one thing that's not part of this presentation, but I just want to let people know,
Sure.
It's an unfortunate thing that happens all the time, is people will go ahead and they'll go to sam.gov, they'll apply, it takes them a little while, their actual certification will go through, but there are some people that data mine the information, and they'll call and they'll act like they're a federal agency, and they'll say, hey, we see that your sam.gov account's been submitted, it's almost finished, or it is finished, but it needs to be registered in accordance with the FAR, which is Federal Acquisition Regulations, and we can do all this. Give us a call or email us with your $495 payment, and we'll go ahead and we'll get our senior analyst on this right away, and then you'll be compliant. So, unfortunately, that happens all the time. So I want to state for the record, there is no cost to register or do anything with the federal government like that. Nothing at all.
Excellent.
So if it seems like it's suspicious to you, by all means give me a call and I'll look at it. But if you do need assistance, we have resource partners that will assist with that, and it's totally free. Some businesses, they're just a little daunted and overwhelmed by the whole process, so they see the value of paying somebody to help with different things, and if they want to do that, it's a business decision. That's fine. I just don't like to see businesses being tricked or deceived into spending money that's not necessary, because I've heard firsthand experiences where people have shelled out thousands of dollars for things, even to apply for the program, and then they're like, well, I met with you and they didn't even give me half as much information. So, the federal government is funded by, citizens, taxpayers' dollars. And all of our resource partners, they get their money from a lot of different funding streams, whether, it's the federal government or state or, different grants or opportunities. So all these resources are out there. So during the application process, I encourage that you contact, a resource partner or the SBA, and we'll get them squared away.
Excellent.
So next we have a quick start guide for Certify. There's a lot of different things that you have to do before you actually go and, apply for the program. When you go to certify.sba.gov, on the bottom, there's going to be a website called Knowledge Base. If you click on there, it's really good. It has this quick start guide, and it also has something that's brand new as of last week. And it's a guide of all the documents that you need to gather before you actually apply for the 8A program.
That's
because
fantastic.
If you can have all of those and have them all labeled and scanned in, it will make it a lot easier to apply. Because when you apply for Certify, you just don't.
You don't have all that stuff together.
But you don't upload your documents all at once. You upload them based on questions and sections.
Right, exactly.
So you'll put them all in there.
That's so convenient.
But some of the big things on here, of course, is you have to have your DUNS number. You have to be registered in SAM. Otherwise, you won't be able to apply for the program. Then you create your account. Fill out your application. That takes a while. You can save the information. Adding contributors, that's so if you have one or more people that actually own the company or actually have to put in information, you basically send them an email invitation through the system. They put in their information. That way it's secure. Because you're not seeing their information. They're not seeing your firm's information and everything else. So it kind of works out nice that way.
Yes, it does.
And then you're going to have to make edits to application and then, delete documents. You can't actually delete documents, but you can replace them, and then they'll just be archived. And then you submit your completed application, and then after that you can check your status and then correspond with SBA. Now, one neat change with Certify is under the current system, when I manage firms for the 9 years during the program, I have to send them a lot of information, and all that official information was going via email. different letters and things of that
okay.
nature. Well, now most of the information is going to be done through the system. You'll get an email through the system saying you need to go in there and check your message.
Oh, excellent.
And so the good thing with that is, number one, it's more secure.
Yes.
So that's key.
That's major.
But number two, it's a 9-year program. I hope to be here and service firms for their entire 9 years.
Sure.
But if for some reason I'm not, another business opportunity specialist will step in. They'll be able to review all the notes, see where the firm is at.
You're right.
And then, just have a little more synergy that way. So if you have to revise your application, you'll get a note, and it will talk about how to, revise the application, what sections you need to go into. The Eligibility and Determination Office, they're really good about sending out a comprehensive letter and to make it as easy as possible.
Oh, good.
But you do want to make sure that you respond to that determination letter.
Exactly. It works both ways.
Because you have so many days. And if you don't respond in that many days, then your application basically would have to start from scratch.
Oh my goodness.
And you don't want to do that.
That's good to know.
Although you would have your documents and everything already in the system, so that would make it easier. So I talked a little bit about resource partners. So the one that really focuses on government contracting is the PTAC.
And they're fantastic. Yes.
They're above fantastic.
I agree.
I work with them all the time, and they're all over the state. They have Joan Rubin's the director, and then they have 4 government contract advisors here in Las Vegas. Then they have one up in Fallon and one up in Carson City.
Yes.
And these individuals have so much experience in business and contracting, but they can help you apply for the program. If you have questions about the 8A program, there's a lot of information online. I have other presentations that I can send out to people. If you're here in Nevada, you can contact me. If you're outside of Nevada, I can point you in the right direction. We have 68 offices.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Across the U.S.
That's excellent.
But a little more of the PTAC. They can help you with bid matching.
Yes.
They have a comprehensive subscription service that would cost the average business, anywhere from $20 to $200 a month.
Oh, wow.
And it's free of charge. They can help you prepare your capability statement. They can help you with emerging small business program for the state of Nevada. They can help with, review your proposals. There's a lot of different things they can do. Now, with the proposals, they can only review the technical part, but they can make sure that you understand the solicitation too, and all the clauses. So they're really good. And they can help you with our other, small business programs too to walk through and apply.
That's been and PTAC. All of their services are free. They're under the umbrella of the governor's office. Between PTAC and the bridge that they create with the 8A certification program with the SBA, it's like a gold mine of resources if you were committed and serious about going through the process of your business becoming 8A certified. We have the resources to help you have the potential for success.
So we also have the small business development centers. They fall under the university systems out here. They're really good.
Yes, they are.
They do a lot of stuff with access to capital, business plans, things of that nature. And then of course we have the Women's Business Center.
We try.
And they do a lot of stuff. And we're so fortunate. As of December, they're co-located with us here in Las Vegas, literally right down the hall from me. So that's really neat. They do a lot of things, and they see men too. I always get that question, and they're really good. They're so passionate. They're a staff of 2, but I'm like, really? I think they're like 5 or 6 people sometimes when I see all the information.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Then we also have SCORE. So SCORE stands for Service Corps Retired Executives. They have a lot of information and knowledge. They primarily work with businesses that are pre-revenue, that are looking to start. They're looking to, do a business plan. But they do work with complex business situations too. And they work with nonprofits too, which is pretty good.
That is, yes. To have that option.
So we have some additional websites too. The first one on top is a big one. That's fbo.gov. That's Federal Business Opportunities. That's where you go to find out what's coming up.
That's huge. Yes.
But if you go to the PTAC, you'll automatically get that based on your NAICS codes and other industries that you're interested in. And it won't be just federal opportunities. It will be all types of opportunities to include commercial and then local government. So it's pretty neat.
Yes, it is. Please contact PTAC, please.
Yes. Is there contact information on here? I can't remember.
No, it isn't, but
I have it. So.
if you'd like to follow up with either Barry or I, and we'll give you our contact information after the webinar, we would be more than happy to connect you with PTAC.
Yes, and I refer them so much. I know their website and phone number by memory because they are phenomenal. All the things they do, and we have a lot of partnerships. We do a lot of different things together. We share information back and forth, and we refer clients back and forth too because we have different functions, but the same goal. So another neat website is usaspending.gov, and that's pretty neat because the website below that is Federal Procurement Data System, and what that system does is anytime something is purchased over a certain amount, it's normally like $25,000, they'll actually make a record of it in that system. And you can search Federal Procurement Data System.gov, but it's hard to do. It's not as user-friendly as usaspending.gov that gets the same information. You can just click on it. You can click by state. You can click by industry. You can see who the largest contract awards are for, Nevada, the industry. So if you're looking for subcontracting opportunities, you can use all of that information. So there's just a lot of good information. And then I have a comprehensive online presentation. If you want that, if you probably don't have access to that hyperlink, if you email me, I'll send it to you with some other information and I'll explain it to you. The really good thing about the presentation is that it actually breaks down each category as far as where it falls under 13 CFR 124. So you can just go look it up. And then that email that I send actually has a link to the law too, so you can look and see where that information is coming from. Because a lot of times, if I don't know something, that's the first place I go. I look and see what the law says. And if I can't find what the law says, then we have a standard operating procedure, and I can share that with the public too. It's all public information. And if you get accepted into the accepted into the program, I actually provide a copy electronically of both documents. That way, if I tell the firm something, they can go verify it.
Very good.
Or maybe the firm might see something that I didn't see or see it a different way, and then we can, bring up that information and get them, the right read on it. And every once in a while, we might not understand at the local level exactly, what the firm is looking for, and then we have a legal team at headquarters too that can assist us.
Wow, that's fantastic. All these resources.
So if you want to learn about other programs, SBA, we have a lot of different things. Our website is really good. So the regular one is sba.gov, but if you go to sba.gov/NV for Nevada, there's a lot of neat stuff on there. The Learning Center up top is really good. How to find access to capital, how to find local assistance. If there's disasters, how to find out about disaster loans, financial assistance, contracting opportunities, counseling, and of course, what everybody loves the most, laws and regulations.
So if you have any questions, please use your question feature that's on the control panel that's provided with this platform with GoToWebinar. Please send them to us, any questions or comments that you may have at this time. If by chance you have to think about some things and you want to contact Barry in the future, then please do so with at his contact information right here.
Yes, and one thing I'd like to say too is if you're part of an organization, whether it's a chamber or some other organization, and you have a group of people, group 2 or more, doesn't have to be like 100 people, although I'd love to speak to 100 people about the 80 program.
Yes.
Especially if it's here in Las Vegas, I can make, easy arrangements to come out. If it's somewhere else in the state, we can make arrangements too. It might just take a little longer, but I love having the opportunity to share the message, the SBA and the 80 program.
Well, I can tell. That's why I wanted you to be our guest speaker here today for the webinar about the 8A certification program. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all the benefits and the criteria that's involved. And if you have any questions regarding counseling, business plan development, if you'd like to set up an appointment with us to talk about your business idea, then please call the Nevada Women's Business Center at area code 702-734-3555, or check us out online at www.nevadawbc.com. Barry, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Definitely. I look forward to having you back again to share some other benefits with the 8A certification program. And it would be really interesting, actually, perhaps to feature one of your participants that is in the beginning phase and in the transition phase. That would be fantastic to feature both of you next time around.
That would be really nice. I have some really, really exciting firms in all phases.
Oh, excellent.
This year I have, unfortunately, I have 4 that are graduating that are doing really well. They're doing so well that they might not be considered small business anymore. It is. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes,
but they're doing really well. And then we have, some new firms that are, just doing great.
Oh, that's fabulous. So. Yes, please.
And our firms do like to share information. They do really like to collaborate with each other too.
Oh, even better. And it's a networking opportunity as well amongst the participants. Yeah. So yes, I look forward to that actually. So thank you so much for tuning in to the 8A certification webinar provided by the Nevada Women's Business Center in collaboration with the SBA. I'm Kathleen Taylor, and thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, take care.